Welcome to channel. Today, we explore story filled with unexpected twists. Please, subscribe and like to stay updated. Let's begin. I remember the day Lucas returned home like it was yesterday. My parents were enamored with this small, wrinkled bundle wrapped in a blue blanket, and the home was filled with joy. I waited on the edge of the sofa, waiting for someone to notice me. My mother eventually glanced up, smiling tiredly. "Harry, come say hi to your little brother," she told him. I walked forward, looking down at Lucas. He looked great, just like a newborn. I wasn't sure what all the hubbub was about, but I reached out anyway. "Be careful," Dad advised, yanking me back before I could touch him. "Be careful, he's fragile." This was the first of many occasions when I felt like an alien in my own house. By 6th grade, ID learned to set modest expectations, but I hoped that this time would be different. I had spent 4 months working on my science fair project, a fully functioning solar system model. I coded in Arduino, computed planetary orbits down to the second, and even created the planets by hand, painting each one with meticulous precision. On the day of the scientific fair, my stomach twisted as I surveyed the throng. Other children had parents snapping photographs, hugging them, and smiling with delight. I stood beside my project, waiting. They were about to go through the doors. Mom would soon wrap me in a hug, and Dad would stroke my hair. Any minute now. But they never arrived. After the fair, I sat in the back seat while Dad drove me home, the prize weighing heavily on my lap. I trailed my fingertips over the etched inscription, which read Special Recognition in Mathematical Engineering, Harry Reynolds. "Hey, Dad," I responded hesitantly. "Did you guys really forget?" Dad said, his gaze fixated on the road. "It's not like that, Harry. Your brother had soccer practice. You know how much he's been looking forward to it." "Yeah, practice," I murmured, grasping the trophy closer. When we came home, I placed the trophy on the mantle, hoping they would notice and say something. But the following morning, Lucas' newest soccer participation ribbon was proudly displayed on the fridge, but my award remained undisturbed. A week later, it had disappeared. I discovered it in the basement, next to a stack of old magazines. Mom still has Lucas' kindergarten macaroni work hung in the kitchen, but she doesn't know where my high school diploma is. It became a lot worse with my dad. There was one moment when I recognized where I stood in this household. My robotics team had spent months working on our competition entry. I was the team leader, and we had created an excellent autonomous bot capable of navigating a labyrinth and doing simple tasks. Dad promised he would be there. He even said how pleased he was of me. The morning before the competition, I was having breakfast and going over my notes one more time when I heard Lucas whimpering from the living room. "Dad, can we play basketball today?" I was frozen. "Of course, buddy," Dad said, ruffling his hair. "What time do you want to head out?" Something chilly sank into my gut. I pulled back my chair and stood at the doorway. "Wait, what?" "Dad, my competition is today." Dad hardly glanced at me. "I know, sport, but Lucas wants to practice his shots. Maybe next time, okay?" "Next time." I stared at him. "I'm the captain. You promised." "Harry," he moaned, wiping his brow as if I were the issue. "It's just one competition. You don't need me to perform well." I couldn't believe that. I opened my lips, but Lucas interrupted, grinning. "Come on, Harry, stop being selfish." I wanted to shout, but instead I turned and went out the door. That was the day I stopped expecting my father to ever turn up for me. Then followed the vehicle incident. Lucas turned 15, and my parents gave him a huge birthday celebration. I was not even invited. It was his special day, and they did not want me to take the focus. Whatever. I wasn't expecting much, but when he came outside and I saw the brand new Toyota Corolla parked in the driveway, I felt like I had been hit in the stomach. "To boost his confidence," Mom said, grinning. I was 15 once too, but when I turned 15, I had to get 3 part-time jobs just to save up for college because they wanted to teach me responsibility. I worked mornings at the library, taught math after school, and spent weekends servicing broken computers at a repair shop. Do you know what the finest part is? For months later, Lucas wrecked the Golf after wrapping it around a telephone pole while texting. Did my parents force him to obtain a job to pay it off? No. They got him another one. Same model, just in a different color. "Accidents happen," Dad had said. I wanted to shout. Yes, and duty was solely essential to me, right? But I did not. It wouldn't have mattered. The real kicker was that Lucas was a bad child. He was a nightmare. If he didn't get his way, he'd have big tantrums, slamming doors, damaging things, and yelling at our parents as if they were the worst people on the planet. He missed school, was caught shoplifting, and was suspended once for getting into a fight. But my parents brushed it aside. He's just going through a phase, Mom would explain. He's sensitive. Meanwhile, I needed to be flawless. If I received anything less than an A, Mom would sigh and remark, "Maybe you're spreading yourself too thin, Harry." If I expressed even a portion of my dissatisfaction, I became the issue. I was being tough and frustrating Lucas. The odd aspect is that for years, I felt there was something wrong with me. Perhaps if I were smarter, more outgoing, and more like Lucas, they might notice me too. So I tried. I studied more, won contests, and volunteered on additional initiatives. But nothing worked. It seemed like I was shouting into the emptiness. I didn't know how horrible things were until I got to college and observed how other families treated one another. My roommates' parents would call to check on them. My friends' families would send care packages and celebrate their successes. My friend Ben once had a surprise visit from his parents, who took him out to supper since they missed him. When I first saw anything like that, I laughed out loud. Not because it was hilarious, but because the thought of my parents doing anything like that seemed like something out of a movie. But what's the finest part about college? The distance. I seldom visited home except for important holidays, and even then, I made reasons to depart early. Dad would make guilt trip statements over the phone. Lucas really misses his big brother. I'd roll my eyes. Yeah, it's funny how he never calls. Oh, you know how he is, Dad said with a lovely laugh. Yeah, I knew exactly how Lucas was. The only time he ever texted me was when he wanted something. Money for some new business idea, a small loan to get him started. It didn't matter that I was still a broke college student. Lucas always assumed I had cash lying around. By my sophomore year, I was flourishing. 3 of my articles had been published, and my teachers were paying note. Then one day, Dr. Morgan, the head of my department, approached me after class. "Harry, I have something exciting to discuss with you," she told him. "There's an opportunity that I think you'd be perfect for." It was an exchange program. 6 months at Edinburgh University, working on a cutting-edge artificial intelligence project. I contacted my parents that night, eager to share the news. Mom responded, sounding preoccupied. "Oh, that's nice, dear, hold on. Lucas, what do you mean you got expelled?" That was it. This was the whole chat. Lucas had just been thrown out of his 3rd community college for missing too many courses. She wasn't paying attention to me the whole time I was talking. She was preoccupied with his newest mistake. So I quit bothering. I departed for the UK, and they didn't notice I was gone until I arrived. And those 6 months changed everything. I was surrounded by some of the most brilliant minds I'd ever encountered, working on stuff I could only imagine back home. The technology, the innovation, it was like entering the future. But what is the finest part? No one recognized me as Lucas' brother. Nobody regarded me as the calm, responsible one in the background. I was simply me. When the program concluded, a startup made an offer. A full-time employment upon graduation. They gave an incredible salary, far more than I had ever dreamed for my first job. Additionally, they would manage my visa and relocation. I did not even hesitate. I agreed on the spot. Graduation was placed a few months later. I was at the top of my class, had received many job offers from prominent corporations, and was prepared to go across the stage. My parents did not show up. Why? Because Lucas had a job interview at a nearby retail establishment. Not a job, not even a second-round interview, just an interview. At that moment, I believe something within me just turned off. I didn't even get angry. I just stopped caring. Moving to London was the finest choice I've ever made. I established a life there. Within 3 years, I was running projects, developing new technology, and finally enjoying life on my own terms. My parents hardly noticed. When they called, it was never about me. It was constantly about Lucas' newest calamity. He was sacked again. Mom would sigh on the phone. His boss just didn't understand him. He borrowed money from the wrong people. Dad grumbled again. It's really stressing us out. Then there was the worst one. Lucas made a girl pregnant. For half a second, I felt sad for him. Perhaps this is the wake-up call he needs. Except, that wasn't true. The girl ended up seeking a restraining order against him because he refused to leave her alone. That was the moment I realized Lucas would never change. And what about my parents? They were not going to change either. But honestly, I was too preoccupied with my own life to spend time thinking about them. And then I met Chloe. I still recall precisely what occurred. It was a little coffee shop in Bayswater, with old wooden tables, mellow indie music, and the aroma of freshly brewed espresso in the air. I was attempting to purchase a coffee, but my card was not functioning, and my very little English was not helping. "Card does not work," I murmured, stumbling for words. I tried again. The clerk offered me a pleasant but perplexing grin. Then, out of nowhere, a voice behind me remarked in excellent English, "I think he's asking if he can try his card again." I turned around to see her. She had a pleasant grin, black wavy hair twisted up into a sloppy bun, and kind eyes that made me feel less like an idiot. Chloe turned out to be an English teacher at a local international school, and we hit it off right away. She was unlike anybody I had ever encountered. She truly listened when I said. She'd ask insightful questions about my job, and when I discussed some new code I was working on, she'd become enthused rather than simply nodding along. And the greatest part? She has her own life and aspirations. Chloe was not searching for someone to solve her troubles. She was searching for a mate. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. It was not a spectacular, over-the-top occasion. No skywriting or flash mob. At twilight, only the two of us stood on a peaceful bridge across the Thames. I took out the ring, my hand trembling slightly, and said, "Chloe, I want every adventure from here on out to be with you. Will you marry me?" She didn't even let me finish before tackling me in a hug, laughing and weeping at the same time. "Of course, you idiot," she murmured into my shoulder. Our wedding was tiny, but amazing. Only our closest friends and her family. No extra drama or worry, just love. My parents? They did not arrive. Dad had phoned many weeks previously and said, "Harry, we really wish we could be there, but Lucas needs us. He's dealing with something serious." Serious turned out to be a shattered phone screen. Honestly, I was relieved. For the first time in my life, I was able to celebrate a significant milestone without having it overshadowed by Lucas' newest calamity. Life was good. Very excellent. I was successful at work, happily married, and lived in a city that I adored. Chloe and I spent our weekends traveling over Europe, taking inexpensive tickets to Spain, Italy, Greece, and anywhere we felt like going. We tried strange meals, got lost in unfamiliar towns, and discovered new things together. For the first time, I felt completely free from the family turmoil. Then, everything changed. My firm stated that they were building a new office in Bristol. Not only that, but they asked me to run it. My income has tripled, and I have received a complete relocation package, a significant advancement in my profession. Chloe was ecstatic. "This is going to be amazing," she said, almost vibrating with enthusiasm. "I've always wanted to live in this city, get a house with a garden, maybe even a dog." I couldn't help smiling. "Yeah," I said, "an adventure." But deep down, all I could think of was one thing. Returning home meant being close to my family. Still, I promised myself that things would be different this time. It'd been years. I had constructed my own life. Maybe my family would be different. When we arrived in Bristol, my mother texted me, "Did you guys get in okay?" For a brief moment, I hoped she was suddenly interested in my life. But then she sent another message. "Lucas is back in town, too. You should catch up." Apparently, his business ventures in California did not work out. By business endeavors, I mean he duped some wealthy girl's parents into investing in his technology enterprise. The startup was a poorly designed website that never launched. When the girl's parents discovered Lucas had spent their money on expensive automobiles and five-star restaurants, they threatened legal action. Typical Lucas. Chloe and I moved into a wonderful house in Brighton, got good jobs, and began establishing our new life. Everything was finally coming together. Then Lucas began appearing everywhere. Initially, it was simply random texts. "Hey, big bro, heard you're back in town." Then there were emails, long, theatrical notes about how had matured and changed. He said that treatment had helped him comprehend his prior faults. He wanted to be a true brother for once. I ignored him for 3 weeks. Then he discovered where I worked. One day, the receptionist at my workplace phoned. "Hey, Harry, there's a guy here who says he has a lunch meeting with you." I knew who he was. "Does he look like a con artist who thinks he's charming?" I questioned him. The receptionist laughed uncomfortably. Kind of." I ordered them to send him away, but he remained outside for 3 hours. My colleagues could see him from our office windows, just standing there, gazing up at the building like a frightening statue. Chloe felt I was being very harsh. "He's trying to make amends, Harry. Everyone deserves a second chance." She had no idea about the restraining orders or the money schemes. I hadn't informed her because, frankly, I was ashamed. Who wants to accept that their own sibling is a skilled scam artist? But Lucas was intelligent, had always been skilled at manipulating others. He began writing Chloe lengthy, emotional notes about how much he regretted not being a better brother, how proud he was of my accomplishments, and how he just wanted to be a part of our lives. Chloe kept encouraging me to give him a chance. He seems sincere, Harry. Lucas always seems sincere, I told him. That's the problem. People can change, she told me. I wasn't believing it, but Chloe was determined to be a mediator. Then, one night, I arrived home fatigued after a hard day at work, looking forward to a peaceful evening. And there was Lucas, sitting in my living room as if he belonged there. My stomach sank. For a split second, I believed I had lost my mind. Had I invited him but forgotten? I then saw the expression on Chloe's face. This was her doing. I tightened my teeth and kept my voice quiet as I walked her into the kitchen. You invited him here without asking me? She crossed her arms. I just thought if you actually talked, maybe you'd see he's trying. I breathed deeply, willing myself to remain cool. I wanted to be upset. I wanted to tell her why Lucas didn't deserve a chance, but I didn't want to get into an argument with Chloe in front of him. And, to be honest, a very little part of me pondered, what if he really had changed? Back in the living room, my brother delivered an Oscar-worthy performance. He smiled and gave her a beautifully wrapped gift. Just a little something for you guys, he was saying. A housewarming present. I accepted it, already suspicious. It was weighty, the kind of weight that indicated a premium item. I cautiously opened it, taking away the pricey wrapping paper to uncover a high-end espresso machine that cost more than some people's rent. I feigned a nod and glanced at Chloe. She seemed truly moved. Wow, she said, her eyes wide. This is so thoughtful. I couldn't help but sneer. Thoughtful? Right. More like an elaborate way to make himself seem generous while probably using someone else's credit card to pay for it. Yeah. I responded bluntly, thoughtful. But Lucas only grinned, as if he hadn't noticed my tone. Then he began into his next performance. So tell me about work, Harry. Heading up an entire office, that's huge. I offered him a generic response, not one for going into detail. He nodded as if he really cared. Then he continued on, professing to be captivated with our life in London. Man, I wish I'd visited while you were there. Always wanted to see Cambridge. Chloe, utterly oblivious of the game he was playing, joined in. It was incredible. We traveled all over Europe. He sighed deeply and shook his head. That's incredible. I missed out on so much. I was such a screw-up back then. Then, as if on cue, he exhaled shakily and wiped his eyes. Tears. I almost laughed. He was excellent. Had always been. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, Harry, he said, his voice shaking just enough to seem genuine. But I just want my brother back. I looked at him, my jaw hardening. Was he serious? I wanted to call him out and tell Chloe what he was doing, but she was enjoying it, and I was too exhausted to fight. So, I let it go. Following that supper, my brother began coming up more often, always when I was at work. Chloe would remark it nonchalantly, as if it were nothing. He stopped by again today, Shed add with a grin. Again? I would inquire. He was just keeping me company, Shed say. He knows what it's like to feel lonely in a new city. That should have been a warning sign, but I was so preoccupied with setting up the office and recruiting people that I overlooked it. Then, around 2 months later, my firm requested that I return to London for 10 days. Chloe sat on the sofa, looking through her phone, while I packed. You should go, she said. It's important. I paused. I don't like leaving you here alone. She rolled her eyes and smiled. Harry, I'm fine. They'll finish unpacking while you're gone. My brother said from the doorway. I can help her out, he remarked effortlessly. I know the city better than she does. That nagging sense struck again. I did not want to seem controlling. Chloe was an adult. She had the ability to make her own judgments, and he seemed to be quite normal. Nonetheless, I took measures. I encouraged our neighbors to keep an eye on the home, installed security cameras, and made sure Chloe knew all of the emergency numbers. The week in London was a blur of 14-hour days, back-to-back meetings, and little time for sleep. Every night when I returned to my hotel, my brain felt fried. Chloe's communications got shorter and less frequent. Sorry, babe. It's been a crazy day setting up my classroom. I miss you. I told myself it was simply the time difference and she was just busy. Then there were messages from my brother. Took Chloe to that seafood place by the river. She loved it. Day at the museum, she's a history nerd. Bro. Who knew? Shopping downtown, got her a scarf. Looks good on her, right? Each message included photos of happy faces at restaurants, walking through parks, and museum displays in the backdrop. But they were not alone. My parents were in every image, Mom smiling and Dad laughing. It seemed like a nice family trip. Every text included a lengthy, over-the-top statement about how appreciative he was. "Thanks for trusting me, Harry. It means the world. I finally understand what family is about." I should have been thrilled that my parents were there. It should have made things seem regular. But it did not. Something felt odd. The night I returned, we had a family supper with only Chloe and my parents. For the first time in years, everything felt normal. We sat at the dining table, Mom fussing over the side dishes and Dad pouring drinks. Lucas was not there, and for once, he was not the focus of attention. I could finally breathe. However, Chloe remained silent. She hardly touched her meal. "Are you okay?" I questioned, putting her foot beneath the table. She stared at me, took a long breath, and lowered her fork. "I'm pregnant." I blinked, stared. "Wait, what?" Chloe chewed her lip, her gaze fixed on me. "We're having a baby, Harry." For a moment, I sat there, my brain short-circuiting. Then it struck me. Holy stuff. We had discussed starting a family. We had envisaged this moment. But now it was real. My chest squeezed with an emotion I hadn't felt in a long time, pure, irrefutable delight. "Are you serious?" I finally choked up. Chloe giggled, her eyes glistening. "Yes, you idiot." Mom shrieked so loudly that I thought she may pass out. "Oh, my God." She virtually screamed. Dad patted me on the back, and his face broke into a rare, real grin. But, brother. He did not seem startled at all. He simply sat there, wearing this strange little grin, and said, "This family is getting bigger in all the best ways." Something about that made my stomach churn. I had no idea why at the time, but looking back, it was when things began to disintegrate. At first, I assumed he was just extremely pleased about the baby, annoying, but harmless. Then he began coming up unannounced all the time. Every other day, he acted as if he belonged there. "Just gotta check on my favorite sister-in-law," he'd remark with the same grin, as if he had an unspoken right to be there. I tried to ignore it. I tried convincing myself that he was simply trying too hard. Then came the comments. Little things bothered me, like "Our baby is going to be so strong," which he would remark. "Already our baby?" Or when he stated, "Crazy how connected I feel to this whole thing." The way he phrased it was more than simply enthusiasm. It was possessive, as if he considered himself as more than an uncle. One night, I finally brought it up with Chloe. I was standing by the sink, watching her chop the fruit on the counter. "You don't think my brother is acting weird?" I questioned him. She did not look up. "Weird? How?" "I don't know. Just too involved. Too much." She sighed and shook her head, as if I had exhausted her. "Paranoid," she mumbled. "He's just happy for us." Happy for us, or happy for you? This prompted her to halt. She set the knife down and eventually turned to face me. "God, you always think the worst of people. He's trying to be better, and you're looking for reasons to push him away." I opened my mouth to complain, but she had already moved by me into the living room. I stood there, teeth rigid, hands clenched and unclenched. I wanted to pursue the issue and make her see it, but I let it go. Maybe I overthought it. I returned home late one night from work and discovered the front door was unlocked. I was certain I had locked it that morning. Chloe was already sleeping, so I simply ignored it. Perhaps she forgot after putting out the garbage. Nonetheless, it nagged me. I took out my phone and checked the security camera feed just to be sure. Error message. Error with storage settings. The equipment had not been capturing the previous week's video. It was gone. I stood there, my heart hammering. That was not a glitch. I knew the cameras were properly set up, and more critically, I had them backed up to cloud storage, something I hadn't informed anybody, even Chloe. After that, I began to notice things. Chloe was continually placing her phone face down, and her calls would cease the instant I arrived into the room. Or how my brother knew what was in our refrigerator without even asking. Small stuff. Small, frightening things. But enough to keep me up at night. One night, I simply laid there looking at the ceiling, unable to fall asleep. Chloe lay next to me, snuggled up and breathing quietly. Her pregnancy left her fatigued all the time. My thoughts would not shut down. Cameras, doors, and phone calls. Then I remembered my cloud backup. I quietly rose up, trying not to disturb her, and slid out of bed. In the faint light of my home office, I signed into my cloud storage account, fingers clammy on the keyboard. The screen displayed hundreds of stored clips. I began with the week I spent in London. The first footage shows Lucas approaching shortly after I departed for the airport. Nothing strange. Chloe had said that he was assisting her with the unpacking. I clicked on the second video. They're sitting on the sofa, close together, watching a movie. It's possible they're innocent. I pushed myself to breathe while opening the next one. The kitchen. Nighttime. He stood uncomfortably near to Chloe. She had her back to the counter and was staring up at him. He said something, and she laughed. Then he kissed her. I froze. Hell no. I clicked on the next clip, and then another. He came over every day while I was away. He let himself in late at night. Chloe invited him in and welcomed him as if everything were usual. My hands trembled as I grabbed the mouse and forced myself to continue watching. The worst aspect wasn't only the treachery itself. It was the casualness with which they approached it, like if they had done it before. They cooked together and watched television on our sofa. He delivered goods as if he lived there. Then I watched the video that crushed me. They were in the kitchen again. He was standing so close to her, as if there was no room between them. She leaned against the counter and giggled at what he said. He stretched out and stroked her face slowly and gently, as if he had every right to. And Chloe? She did not draw away. She smiled at him, exactly like she used to smile at me. I watched 10 days' worth of material in a single night. I saw them moving closer. I saw him making himself at home. I saw she was allowing him. The cameras did not record into the bedrooms. I wasn't that paranoid, but the hallway camera captured plenty. Lucas enters our bedroom. Chloe emerges hours later. I felt as if I was drowning. My own house is becoming into something unfamiliar. I saved every bit of video, backed it up, and made duplicates. The enraged side of me realized I needed evidence. My spouse simply wanted to check up. I kept telling myself I may be mistaken. Perhaps there was an explanation. But deep inside, I knew. My brother. My wife. My house. My bed. While I was in London, I worked hard to improve our lives. I phoned in sick the next morning after seeing all of the material. I couldn't have concentrated on work anyhow. I sat in my home office, looking at the wall and waited for Chloe to wake up. She eventually strolled in, cheerfully discussing pregnant vitamins and doctor's appointments, acting as if everything was normal, as if she hadn't spent the previous week allowing my brother into our house. I did not shout, did not yell. I opened my laptop and pressed play. Kitchen footage. Lucas' hands are all over her. Chloe's face had lost its color. Her hand shook as she took a tentative step backward. Harry, I interrupted her. Don't. My voice was firm, but within, I was barely hanging on. Just don't. Tears welled in her eyes. I can explain, she said, her voice shaking. I let out a sour chuckle. Explain? I nodded to the television, where Lucas continued to touch her as if he had every right to. Go ahead, Chloe. Explain this. She wiped her eyes, breathing in rapid, shallow breaths. It's not what it looks like, really. My voice increased, and the rage finally came out. I stood up with the chair grinding against the floor. Because it looks like my wife has been screwing my brother while I was thousands of miles away. Chloe's sobbing became louder. Her fist grasped the edge of my desk, as if it were the only thing holding her standing. We didn't mean for this to happen, she gasped out. It just happened. I gazed at her, felt something inside me crack. We? I repeated, my voice cold. She nodded with desperate eyes. Lucas. He really gets me, she added, as if this somehow made things better. I let out a sour chuckle. Lucas gets you? Lucas, the guy who can't keep a job longer than 6 months? The guy who scams people for a living? That's who gets you? Her lips shook, but she didn't say anything. My rage became more intense with each passing moment. I shook my head, astonishment tinged with wrath. I gave you everything, Chloe. I built a life for us. I worked my ass off so we could have a future. So our kid would have a future. You never had to worry about rent, about food, about anything. I supported your career, traveled halfway across the world with you. I trusted you. And you threw it all away for him. Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't done. I took out my phone and quickly messaged Lucas. No explanations. No warnings. We need to talk. Now. Minutes later, there was a knock on the door. He stepped in with the same arrogant smirk he usually had, perhaps assuming I hadn't realized yet. Probably thinking I was still in the dark and the idiot. But the moment his gaze fell on the laptop, on the film playing frame by frame, the smile evaporated. His eyes moved to the television and then back to me. His whole body tensed. He knew. But Lucas, ever the manipulator, attempted to twist it. Bro, you've got to understand. I cut him off, my voice icy and cutting like a sword. How long has this been going on? Chloe gave a small sob behind me, but I ignored her. It wasn't about her anymore. Lucas paused, searching for an angle, an escape route. It just happened, man. We didn't plan this. It wasn't like that. Chloe eventually found her voice, faint and wavering. Please, you have to understand. We didn't mean to hurt you. I laughed. The sound was unpleasant and without humor. You let my brother into our home. You let him into our bed. You let him pretend to be me while I was gone. But sure, tell me how you didn't mean it. Lucas' attitude altered, defensiveness coming in. Look, bro, you're always working, always focused on your career. Chloe was lonely. She needed someone who could be there for her. And then, with complete arrogance, he said, maybe if you'd been a better husband, this wouldn't have happened. My whole body was fixed in place. My hands tightened so hard, my nails bit into my palms. Every muscle in my body screamed for me to fling Lucas through the next wall, to beat him until his smug countenance was all sorrow. But I pushed myself to be still. I pushed myself to breathe. I scowled at him, my voice low and threatening. Is that what you tell yourself to sleep at night? That it's somehow my fault? That you didn't have a choice but to act like a goddamn parasite? Chloe cried louder behind me, her breath coming out in harsh spurts. Please, she cried, we need to think about the baby. I moved my head so quickly that Chloe flinched. Whose baby is this? I inquired. Her face wrinkled. Her hands held her stomach, as if the answer would protect her. She didn't seem to have considered my question. It's yours, she gasped out. I threw her a frigid stare that might have frozen the whole room. Like you swore I was the only one? I took a step forward, my voice shrill. Like you swore Lucas was just family? She didn't respond. Because she could not. Lucas, frantic, lifted his hands, as if he could extinguish the fire he sparked. Come on, man. We're all family. We can figure this out. That was it. That was the moment something inside of me shattered. I strode toward him, closing the gap until I was in his face, close enough for him to feel the rage emanating from me. Let me make something very, very clear to you, Lucas, I muttered, my voice like ice. You are not my family. You are not my brother. You are nothing to me. He opened his lips, but I hadn't finished. You crossed a line you can't get back from, and if this baby isn't mine. I leaned in, my breath heated on his pale face. Then you better run. I let the words settle. Let terror creep up his spine. You better pack up whatever scam you're pulling and get the hell out of my city. Because if I ever see you again, if you so much as breathe near me or this house, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your miserable life. Lucas stopped moving for the first time in his miserable life. His eyes darted. His lips opened, but no words emerged. Chloe moaned behind me, her voice shaking. Please, let's just... I shut her off. Both of you, get out. Now. Chloe did something I didn't anticipate. She grabbed for my hands and gripped them tightly, as if I were her only hope. Her fingers shook against mine. Please, she whispered. We can fix this. I jerked my hands away so quickly that she almost toppled forward. I wasn't lost, Chloe. You were lost. And you let my brother guide you straight into hell. Tears streamed down her cheeks. It was a mistake, she blurted out. A horrible mistake. Yeah, no kidding, I said, my voice icy as ice. She breathed deeply, and then, like clockwork, she switched the script, attempting to shift the responsibility onto me. Are you really going to punish our child for this? Her voice broke, precisely as if she had rehearsed it. Are you seriously going to be one of those dads? The kind who lets their own bitterness ruin their family? I scowled at her, so enraged that I could not see straight. Don't even try that on me, I warned, my voice low and sharp. That baby needs one parent who isn't a liar and a cheat. Chloe wept more, but I didn't care anymore. They continued to speak and make excuses, but I didn't have the energy to disagree. It was over. I kept begging them to go. Eventually, they were gone. The moment the door banged shut, I grabbed my phone. The only thing left to do was phone my parents. Maybe they'd finally recognize Lucas for what he was, a serpent. I should have known better. My mother's first remarks upon picking up the phone were not one of anxiety. There was no hostility against Lucas. We weren't even astonished. Oh, honey, she moaned. You must have done something to push Chloe away. I felt like I had been hit in the stomach. What? I said, not believing I'd heard her correctly. She continued going. Lucas needs a good woman in his life. And Chloe clearly makes him happy. For a brief while, my thoughts was blank. No way, I mumbled. Are you actually hearing yourself right now? I snapped. You're taking his side? She did not even hesitate. She just sighed, like if I were a kid having a tantrum. Sweetheart, you've always been so focused on work. Maybe this is a sign that Chloe needed more from you. I almost dropped my phone. Perhaps I was hallucinating. Perhaps I had drifted into a strange parallel world in which my mother was genuinely shouting these things aloud. And things got worse. My father spoke up, his voice firm, as if he were delivering rational advice rather than complete craziness. Son, he replied, Lucas finally found his. You need to be the bigger person here. Help him out financially until he gets on his feet. I almost laughed. Bigger person? You want me to bankroll the people who betrayed me? You're joking, I said plainly. Harry, my mother murmured, as if I were an eccentric kid. Family takes care of each other. I grabbed my phone so hard that my knuckles became white. Family? I repeated, my tone low and menacing. You want me to pay for my brother? I said, my voice rising. After he screwed my wife? She had the guts to express disappointment. You're so bitter, she said. Lucas made a mistake, and so did Chloe. But they're trying to move forward. Maybe you should too. I placed my fingers to my skull, attempting to suppress the wrath rising in my throat. Oh, I'm moving forward, I replied, my voice full of hate. Just not in the direction you want. That's when I began receiving calls from family. Some are alarmed, while others accuse. The rumors had already started. I answered one call from my aunt, who wasted no time. Harry, I just heard, she whispered quietly, as if it were a horrible secret. Is it true? Did you really push Chloe away? Were you, too controlling? I clenched my jaw. Where the hell did you hear that? She paused and confessed, your parents. They said you had security cameras in your house. That you were paranoid. That you scared Chloe off with your coldness. I gave a harsh, bitter chuckle. Security cameras in my own damn house? They said Lucas was just being supportive, she said nervously. That things got complicated, and he was there for her. I almost saw red. Complicated? I said, my voice filled with doubt. Yeah, I bet things got real complicated when he was sneaking into my house behind my back. She had nothing to say after that. That was it for me. Done. I finished with Lucas. Done with my parents. Am done with everything. That afternoon, I contacted a lawyer. I found a reliable one who specialized in matters requiring evidence of infidelity. I have everything documented, I informed them. Every visit, every lie, every betrayal. I want a divorce. The procedure began immediately. I should have felt relieved, maybe even satisfied. But my parents weren't done attempting to wreck what little was left of my life. A week after I filed, they served me with something even more insane, a lawsuit seeking financial support for both Lucas and Chloe. They said that I had a family responsibility to assist my brother and expectant wife at this difficult time. They asked me to pay Lucas rent, cover Chloe's living costs, and support Lucas' newest business idea. The audacity was astonishing. They didn't realize that although they were presenting me as the villain, I was already 3 steps ahead. I had been preparing my case, ensuring that when I struck back, it would strike them squarely. Chloe assumed she was just dealing with a disgruntled ex. Lucas saw me as simply another idiot he could take advantage of and abandon. They had no clue. With the aid of my lawyer, we began looking for everyone Lucas had wronged. We scoured social media, internet forums, and court records to find every victim who had fell for his schemes. When my lawyer recommended pursuing a class action lawsuit against him, I did not hesitate. We have solid evidence, she said to me. Bank transfers, fake business deals, manipulated contracts. This isn't just fraud, Harry. This is a career criminal with a paper trail. Good, I said coldly. Let's burn him to the ground. Then we delved deeper. I knew Chloe had deceived me, but I had no idea how far it went. My lawyer obtained bank records, noted transactions, followed purchases, and cash withdrawals, all of which coincided with Lucas' unexpected visits to my home. Chloe had not just screwed my brother. She had been helping him steal from me. She's been funneling money out of your accounts, my lawyer remarked sadly. Joint accounts. That's marital theft. I clenched my jaw. So what do? We freeze everything immediately, she told me, and we report the suspicious activity to the bank's fraud department. Done. Despite this, my parents continued to pursue their case as if they had any remaining grounds. They asked me to pay $5,000 per month for Lucas' basic necessities, an additional $3,000 for Chloe's living costs, and then $50,000 for Lucas' new business. like I was going to give money to the guy who took my wife. They might drain me dry, as if I were an ATM. And the greatest part? They were doing all of this before anybody knew if the baby was mine. The court date for their money demands came at the ideal time, exactly when I needed it. I strolled into the courtroom calmly, knowing what was about to happen. Lucas sat opposite my parents, seeming bored, as if this were just another bother. He'd charm his way out of this, as usual. Chloe was stiff, her fist grasping the table edge, most likely practicing her crocodile tears. And what about my parents? They sat there with smug pleasure, certain they had me trapped. They had no clue what was coming. My lawyer rose as soon as the judge took his seat. Your Honor, before we address their financial demands, would like to present new evidence relevant to this case. This piqued everyone's interest. The judge approved, and my lawyer moved in for the kill. First, he detailed Lucas' fraud schemes, including every swindle, manipulated investment, and victim we had identified. My mother's confident grin faded. My dad moved in his seat. Then the second bombshell dropped. Evidence that my parents had helped Lucas cover up his crimes for years. My lawyer presented bank statements to the court, emphasizing unusual payments and undisclosed assets. My mother stiffened. That money was for, she mumbled. For concealing the profit Lucas made from innocent people, my lawyer cut in effortlessly. We also have emails between Mr. and Mrs. Bowen and their son, discussing how to shield his earnings from legal action. The courtroom was completely hushed. Then the judge spoke. I see enough here to warrant a full investigation into Mr. and Mrs. Bowen's possible involvement in criminal financial activity. My parents' arrogant faces disappeared, replaced with panic. My mother's hand rose to her lips. My father's face became gray. Lucas gazed at them, understanding they'd stepped right into a trap. Chloe was not spared, either. The judge walked towards her. I also see evidence suggesting Mrs. Bowen's involvement in fraudulent financial activities alongside Lucas Bowen, he continued, thumbing over the records. Given her position as an educator, this raises serious ethical concerns. Chloe's lawyer made frantic attempts to oppose, but it was too late. The school board was previously alerted. By the end of the day, they had opened a formal ethics inquiry into Chloe's activities, namely how she had assisted Lucas in targeting rich parents for his investment frauds. Her teaching career ended before she knew what hit her. And what about Lucas? His house of cards fell dramatically. More victims came forward. Every strategy was revealed in real time. His reputation was ruined. Investors backed out. Business connections severed links. Nobody would trust him with a single $1, much alone invest in him. And when he attempted to leave to Nevada, he could not. His accounts were frozen. His credit had been wrecked. He had nowhere to turn. Meanwhile, my parents and Chloe's lawyer attempted to portray me as controlling and aggressive due to my home security cameras. They believed it would make me seem paranoid and possessive. But when my lawyer showed the real evidence, that the cameras were put for home protection while I was away, their whole case collapsed. Rather than making me seem terrible, it made them appear desperate and dishonest. But I wasn't done. There was just one thing left. I needed to know whether the baby was mine. By the time we arrived to the paternity test hearing, everything had gone apart for them. Lucas was under various probes. Chloe was jobless and facing probable criminal penalties for her involvement in Lucas frauds. My parents? Their unsuccessful case has cost them a lot of money in legal bills. Their idyllic little world had crumbled, and I hadn't even needed to get my hands filthy. I just let the law do its work. But as I sat there waiting for the test results, I realized something. I no longer cared about their collapse. I wasn't thinking about vengeance. I was wondering about the future. My future. And maybe my child's future. If this kid was mine, I was not going to allow Chloe or Lucas have any say over it. I planned to fight for full custody. And because to our meticulous documentation, I was in an ideal position to win. The knock on my door the day after the results arrived was louder than I anticipated. I was at home, sitting at my desk when I heard it. A loud knock. I checked the security feed. Chloe and Lucas. I exhaled. Of course. I opened the door, and before I could say anything, Chloe marched in as if she still lived there. You need to drop all of this legal crap, she said, folding her arms. Families should stick together. I raised an eyebrow. Family? You mean the same family who thought it was okay to betray me? You two don't get to tell me about family. Lucas stood behind her, nodding like an ignorant backing dancer. She's right, bro, he continued. We should move on from all this fighting and focus on what really matters, co-parenting, like a modern family. I glanced at them, perplexed. You want me to do what? I chuckled bitterly, before I could stop myself. You want me to drop the lawsuits and what? Join hands and sing Kumbaya? Chloe huffed. Look, we're both going to be in this child's life, whether you like it or not. It makes sense for us to work together. Lucas smirked, as if he believed this was going to succeed. Yeah, man. We could even move in here. There's plenty of space. It's what's best for the baby. I stopped laughing. I glanced at them, stunned. You want to move into my house? I inquired softly. Chloe raised her chin. It's only fair. You have the resources. We wouldn't even be asking if you hadn't. If I hadn't what? I interrupted. If I hadn't caught you stealing from me? If I hadn't exposed Lucas scams? If I hadn't ruined your perfect little fantasy? Chloe's cheeks reddened with rage. You're being unreasonable, she said. This isn't just about you. There's a child involved now. I leaned against the doorway, my voice icy as ice. And the only thing that matters to me is making sure this child is never exposed to either of you. Chloe opened her lips, perhaps to yell something about me being callous, but Lucas took out his phone and began filming. I almost laughed again. Oh, you're filming now? I inquired. How cute. Just making sure there's proof, he added. The courts aren't going to like how unwilling you are to cooperate. I cocked my head and pretended to think about it. Then I moved aside and pointed to the security camera in the corner of the room. Both of them froze. The thing is, I said with a grin on my face, my security system also records audio. Chloe's eyes widened. Lucas became pale. I offered them a slow smile. Not only do I have your pathetic little recording, but I also have crystal clear footage of you two trying to extort me. I tapped my chin. Didn't you just admit to a few other scams you've been running, Lucas? Chloe's jaw dropped open. Lucas grabbed her arm. Let's go, he said. But it was too late. They were well aware of this. I knew it. When I forwarded the film to my lawyer, Monica, she chuckled. She laughed so hard that she had to put me on hold. When she returned, she was still laughing. Well, Harry, she replied, this is what we call Christmas coming early for our case. Karma struck Lucas quickly. I hardly had time to relax and enjoy the aftermath before he got himself into even more trouble. See, he believed he could continue his typical tricks in Nevada. Except this time, one of the investors he attempted to defraud was really an undercover FBI agent. I discovered out when my parents phoned and begged for aid. I let the phone ring many times before responding. What? I said bluntly. My mother's voice sounded panicked. Harry, it's your brother. He's been arrested. You have to help. I almost laughed. I have to? Why? My father sees the phone. He's family, he snarled. You don't turn your back on family, son. I snorted. You mean like how Lucas turned his back on all his victims? You're being cruel, my mother said. Lucas made a mistake. I shut her off. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill on time. A mistake is accidentally sending an email to the wrong person. Scamming dozens of people for years? That's not a mistake. That's who he is. There was stillness until my father spit out. We had to sell the vacation home to bail him out. Now that made me giggle. Oh, that's perfect, I replied. You threw away a house for a con artist who will absolutely do this again the second you're not looking. He's misunderstood, my mother asserted. He just needs help, and as his brother, you should. I groaned and rubbed my temples. I don't owe him anything. And the fact that you're still defending him after everything tells me all I need to know. I hung up before they could reply. If Lucas' fall was stunning, Chloe's was just as catastrophic, if not worse. Remember the school board investigation? Yeah, they discovered a gold mine. Apparently, she had been utilizing her position as a teacher to acquire financial information from parents and then giving it to Lucas for his schemes. Now she was under investigation by the Department of Education, and a group of enraged parents were suing her. Monica contacted me as soon as she received the information. You're going to love this, she remarked, hardly holding back her enthusiasm. Chloe's facing civil suits from multiple parents, and if they can prove she accessed student records for financial info, that's a felony. I let out a low whistle. Damn, that's brutal. Monica laughed. Yeah, but she earned every bit of it. As if things weren't awful enough, my parents attempted one more stunt, a family intervention at their church. A cousin texted me and warned me, hey, just a heads up, your parents are telling everyone you're mentally unstable and need help. They're planning some church thing with Chloe's family. Thought you should know. I just shook my head. Of course they are. What they didn't realize was that Monica had previously informed the church leadership about Lucas' extensive list of victims. which included numerous senior members. So when my parents arrived with Chloe's family, intending to cast me as some cruel monster, they were in for a big revelation. My mother contacted me after the incident, her voice trembling. "Why did you?" She gulped. "You turned everyone against us." I sat back in my chair and smirked. "No, Mom. You did that all by yourself. My parents are now social pariahs in their own neighborhood. No more blind support. No more compassion. Only cold, brutal consequences. In case you were wondering, no, I have not forgiven them. And, no, I don't intend to. Some bridges are not intended to be reconstructed. The DNA test determined that the baby was not mine, thus I am also free of responsibility. But the infant deserves more than their destructive influence. For the time being, I'm concentrating on the future since the last few months have shown unequivocally that family is more than blood. It's about who supports you when everything goes apart. Thanks for watching. What would you have done in this situation? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.